We are rolling. Welcome to Hannah's Corda, Lydia Liebman. I am so thrilled to welcome you to the show. I thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Hannah. I'm really excited to chat with you. This is a great way to spend a Thursday afternoon.
Hannah's Corner just kind of was born out of the pandemic as a way to how can we connect in a different way that we haven't before. So it kind of presented a unique opportunity to meet and mingle with awesome women in jazz like yourself from all arenas of the jazz circle. So glad to have you. For those who are not familiar with Lydia, she is the founder, wonderful entrepreneur of Lydia Liebman Promotions, and she is multi-talented. She started out, studying from a jazz family. Her dad is, of course, the great Dave Liebman. She is an amazing jazz vocalist herself and started out in radio, behind the scenes radio production, engineering, hosting her own shows, featuring some amazing artists like Chick Corea back in the day. And she went on to follow her path in publicity, starting LLP. And we're just really thrilled to have her here. We're opening the floor to questions, so as we talk, feel free to message in the live stream, and I'll be happy to integrate those. So let's just kick off by talking a little bit about your entrepreneurial spirit, because I think that's something that really struck me. Just kind of your trajectory, reading about you, learning more through your YouTube videos. It's so cool to see your creativity evolve just over the years, how someone starts just in radio and from a really rich musical background and then goes through the years. And really, I feel like your talent is, working with people and bringing out the best in people and representing people to their full capacity, as someone can see through the amazing press that you've garnered for so many artists. Where was the seed planted, one might ask, for Lydia Liebman Promotions?
Well, thank you again, Hannah, for having me. And you nailed the bio. Like, I think you get the award for, fastest bio read. So kudos. I always was around really entrepreneurial women. So my mother had a business for over 20 years that was a book distribution company. So when I was in school, like she would drop me off from school, work, and then I would come home at 2:30, and then she would be with me for the rest of the day. But she did that for 2 decades. My grandmother ran her own business with my grandfather, and she was like super badass on both sides of the family. Actually, they were both really just kind of pioneering women. So I always kind of grew up around that, and I always saw that. So I think subconsciously I just sort of assumed that I guess I would do the same thing. But the company kind of just happened really organically. As you said, I had a background in radio, and I was doing that the whole time I was in college, and I kind of simultaneously started doing some show promotion and stuff like that. And over time, it just developed into this thing. And before I knew it, I was doing this full time, and here I am. So it's been a fun journey for sure.
Wow, that's great to have such mentors and to see women who are following their own path, and it's probably really easy to get inspired. You talk a little bit about just being in Berklee and when you were back in college, in the college days, kind of seeing students not really get the press they deserve. So many great artists, and they were kind of clueless as to how do I market myself, how do I get the word out there, and you were so gung ho about promoting them. You're putting posters everywhere. You're like, we need to get this music out there. Which is pretty cool. I mean, were a lot of these peers of yours, buddies, or?
Yeah, they were friends. I mean, I went to Emerson College in Boston. That's where I started, and I went there and graduated from there. But I simultaneously was attending Berklee College of Music, so I was becoming friends with a lot of musicians. I was just kind of casually hanging out with a lot of just really just talented people. Coincidentally, I believe it was the first month of college, there's this jazz festival that takes place in Boston. Used to, actually, they didn't do it this past year. It's the Berklee Beantown Jazz Festival, and it's in every September. And I went there with a couple friends I knew, and I just met so many people at this festival. It was crazy. I actually met who turned out to be my husband at this, that day. It was wild. And we all became really good friends, and they were all having concerts across, little clubs in Boston or school shows or things like that. And I just felt at first that, there could certainly be some room for audience development. And I didn't know like what I was doing at all, but I thought, well, I can make a poster and make a flyer and like learn Photoshop and like do this. So that's kind of how it got started. I was like making posters for my friends, and, I didn't really have any concept of like what really went into promoting a show or like what went into any of those things. I just kind of did what I thought you did. And I, over time, kind of like developed a little reputation doing that. And finally, it was Danilo Perez, actually. He has the Berklee Global Jazz Institute up there in Boston. And he and the managing director, Marco Pignataro, he was like, you want to like do some PR for us? I was like, sure. I don't know what that means, but I'll do it. And I, over time, definitely learned on the job how to do these things. But it really all started with just helping out friends. And I think that's how it should be with every business. You've got to start somewhere, and, doing it with your friends and peers is really the best way to get your feet wet, and to, to kind of have like a low pressure situation to learn the ropes. So thanks to all my friends that were my guinea pigs. But that's definitely how it started, though, for sure.
A moment where you, like a light bulb moment where you're like, okay, I want to start LLP? Or was it something that kind of developed naturally?
It kind of developed naturally. I mean, I never really like had I didn't really like wake up one morning and was like, I'm going to be a publicist today. It was just sort of like, I noticed that it was kind of going in that direction. And, it's funny because I didn't even know that there was a career like this. I had no idea. And I was first introduced to PR really through two people. The first one was because of my radio show. I was on the other end of receiving promos and press releases and stuff like that quite a bit. So I got to kind of know like local promoters, and I got to know kind of other PR people in that way without realizing it. So that was my first like introduction to what it is. I would get a press kit in the mail, and like a real press kit. It wasn't that long ago, but I would still get like a real press kit with like folders and, the CD and all this business card and the whole thing. So I saw that and I thought that was really cool. And then it was really through Anne Braithwaite, who's a publicist in Boston, who is just the bomb. I mean, she's just absolutely fantastic. And she was hired about 10 years ago by my dad to help him when he got the NEA award. And so that was my first time actually seeing that, there is such a thing as a publicist, and that this is a job. And that's why I got into it. I saw it happen. I was like, okay, I guess I could do this. And so I just sort of like picked up things, and I would ask Anne all these questions, like, is this right? Or like, do I do it this way? And my husband and I, now husband would go to her house for brunch, and, we would like talk about like how, what she does, and like what she's doing with certain artists and all that. So I really did learn a lot from her. And I learned a lot just from, seeing what other people were doing. And that's kind of how it happened. But it definitely was not like I woke up and I was like, this is what I want to do. It was really just naturally, it just happened that way.
Fabulous. It's a fabulous journey. And I feel like being so great with people as you are and a real go-getter, I think being in that role as a publicist, you probably get to marry all of your interests, right? Working with people, kind of getting to know someone, interviewing, you had that network, built up, that it probably was just like the next level. It just kind of built itself and you went for it.
Yeah, I think that, just like being open to new experiences. I mean, there were a lot of times where I was approached to do stuff where I like definitely didn't have like the necessary experience now that I look back on it, to do it right per se. But I learned. I don't think I would be where I am today if I didn't have those learning experiences and didn't have those opportunities to learn. So I'm really thankful, to the people that took shots on me when I was still in college and was really just like learning what to do. But it does help having a radio background, growing up in the music, and you naturally just sort of know a lot about, the world because you are growing up with two jazz musicians as parents. So that really helps. So it was kind of just like a natural step to be in PR, which you're right. And that it does really marry all those different things. And, being good with people is a plus. I mean, I'm not always good with people. If you talk to me before my coffee in the morning, I'm definitely good with people. I'll tell you that. Or after this, like once it gets dark out, unless I'm at a show or a concert, like my phone is, I don't know where my phone is. I don't, it's like, don't even, you don't want to talk to me.
Nice. So talk to me a little bit about jazz specifically in the PR space. So when I think like PR, I'm thinking like press and getting coverage and reviews. How is kind of jazz? I know it's a niche. How is it different than other types of PR, maybe for different genres?
Well, I mean, considering I haven't worked in any other genre, I can't give you a true, a really like true textbook answer on that. I do notice that, the jazz PR world, or just the jazz world in general, is small. I mean, we all kind of know each other. It's a very small community, while being simultaneously a huge community and a large, really international, obviously, community. But it's pretty niche, and we all know everyone. We know each other. You get to really know the writers you're dealing with, and you really get to know the radio hosts you deal with. And there's these conferences every year, the Jazz Congress, and the in Europe there's the Jazz Ahead conference, and these types of things are just great because you get to really like connect with the community, in person, and it's a really beautiful opportunity. I hope we can do that this year. I don't know. You feel like you're part of the family. I'm not sure. I'm sure every genre feels that way, but I feel like in jazz it's even more pronounced just because of the nature of the music, and it's a very personal situation. When you're dealing with an artist, I mean, as a publicist, you really get to know them very well, and you're spending a lot of time talking with them and getting to know them, and you learn about their family, you learn about everything. And I'm not sure. I don't know if it's like that in every single genre, just because I don't know. I just don't know if it is that way, but maybe it is. So that's something that's really nice about jazz specifically. And also, we are dealing with a really peculiar kind of set of circumstances. I mean, even before the pandemic, the opportunities for jazz musicians to play. By the way, if you hear speaking, that is my dog like having a field day behind me, so I apologize. Hopefully he like chills out. So I'm very sorry. He's always interrupting all my Zooms. Anyway, so I think that pre-COVID, even in jazz, it's like we're dealing with like a very, there's only a couple clubs in each city. So, you're already dealing with like a really stressful situation as far as like booking gigs and getting paid the right amount and all this stuff. And I feel like in jazz, it's like, it's even more so that way than maybe in other genres where there's a lot more opportunity to play out. Obviously, there's a little bit more money in other genres and all around. So there are some specifics that make it a little bit more challenging, but there's also, that balance, it gets balanced out by the positives, which is that it really does feel like you're doing something good and you really feel like you're part of the community. So I'm really thankful to be doing jazz PR. My dabbles in more mainstream stuff, I have sometimes projects that kind of overlap in rock, pop, or things like that, or R&B or things like it that are totally more mainstream. And it's really feels like a different world when I'm dealing with that. It's like a completely different vibe. It's hard to explain.
You talked a bit about just how it's like slightly different, in the jazz community and world. How might you like tailor a campaign to an artist? Let's say like you had like a crossover artist who doesn't really know how to define themselves. Maybe they're somewhere in between like jazz and soul, or like a little rock, or a little bit of everything. What's your approach typically in terms of how you would lay out a campaign for someone like that?
It's a good question. The thing that's really interesting, I think, about my roster is that I do have a lot of artists that fall in that category. I surely have my straight ahead, jazz groups. I mean, for sure, there's plenty of them, but there is like every season quite a few that kind of fall on the cusp, whether it's kind of more folky oriented, or maybe it's a little bit like singer songwritery, or sometimes I'll have projects that kind of fall into the cracks of like an R&B soul thing. And it's really interesting. I mean, the first thing is for me, since I'm working primarily in jazz, is like getting the jazz audience first. So my first thing is like approaching the typical jazz crew and being like, is this going to fly with them? And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, I have projects that are like really hard to consider, like to call jazz. I mean, for instance, Michael Alatuja's new project that just came out, Lagos Pepper Soup, is like one of the best projects I think I've worked in for a long time. It's so good. It's very eclectic. It's got world music. It's very cinematic. It's obviously has a lot of jazz, but it's really like, I mean, I feel like I'm watching some like a movie when I listen to this record. It has Angelique Kidjo and Lauren Mulva, and it's just fabulous. So someone like Michael, you know, I might have a little bit of trouble getting the jazz crew to come on board because musically it might be just like a little bit too outside what they're used to. But on the other hand, like Michael is jazz, you know, is jazz trained and he has a reputation in the jazz world. So, you know, we have to kind of like build that into the story so that it's not like I'm coming at jazz journalists with this project like way out of left field that's like way too, you know, eclectic for them. So it's kind of like first approaching the jazz audience and being like, okay, like, is this going to fly? If it doesn't fly, I mean, it's okay. I mean, I prefer it to fly because if it doesn't, it's hard since that's really where my core is. So then it's kind of like looking at the other side of it. So like, where does this fall? You know, Robin McKell released a great project in February called Alterations. Definitely, you know, jazz infused project, but it's like very, you know, very soul oriented. It is just really kind of like tunes by female composers, but like kind of pop tunes kind of turned into like these contemporary jazz soul-y renditions. So with her, I could go to maybe someone like Soul Tracks or Soul Bounce or, you know, Echoes or something that's maybe a little bit more R&B oriented and soul music oriented and see if we can use that, you know, to get her some coverage. And it's kind of like that with everybody. We just kind of look and see like, you know, where can we pitch this? And the thing is that's important to note is that once you start going into crossover and you start going with the mainstream stuff, like you're now dealing with a much larger pool of competitors because you're dealing with everybody else. And for as small as the jazz world is, the pop world, as we know, is huge. So suddenly now, like, you're not just like a, you know, this like anomaly in jazz where they might be like, oh, wow, it's really interesting what she's doing. Now you're like another kind of like singer songwriter, you know, another just singer or vocalist or whatever. And they're not looking at it in terms of what you've done for jazz. So it's a lot more difficult to get placements in that way because you're dealing with like, you're competing with everybody. So that's kind of how we approach those projects, but I have quite a few of them. So I'm always looking at how can we get this out there and hopefully, you know, we're successful, but it's not always easy.
Oh, definitely not. No, that's so nice that you represent a diverse body of artists too, which makes you so accessible and approachable because people aren't going to be like, oh, she just does this or this. It's like, no, you know, I love your approach and it's very customized to the individual.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I do try to get some light in here. Oh my God, I'm like so dark in my cave. I do try to keep a diverse roster, and part of that too comes down to when publicists are dealing with journalists, you know, it's not always like we're pitching for reviews or we're pitching it to them. I mean, a lot of the times I'll have journalists come to me and say, hey, I'm looking for, you know, a tune or a song that has a message about XYZ, or do you have any, you know, female horn players that I can include in an article and things like that. So when they come to me, I want to be able to give them like a diverse offering of artists. If I only have, you know, straight ahead jazz artists, which is fine, but if I only have that and maybe they're writing for a publication that's meant a little bit more mainstream or bent in a different way, I want to be able to give them someone that can fit that. So that's why one of the reasons why I like to keep it diverse and, you know, just keeps my job interesting. So I'm not writing about the same thing every day when I'm pitching.
One thing I wondered is I have a lot of friends and, you know, that are independent musicians and putting out some amazing music and you know, and we're in the age of you do it all yourself, right? Where you self-promote and you're kind of your own publicist, your own producer, your own songwriter, everything rolled into one. And for many people, for, you know, a long time, some people for a short time, you know, the way the cookie crumbles. But yeah. What advice might you give to a young person who's, you know, on the fence about, you know, is it time to reach out to a professional, someone like you, to a publicist, or can I just do this on my own? You know, let's say they have a couple albums going. Let's say they've gotten some one-off press coverage. Like, what is that moment in which someone needs to consider the next level?
Yeah, you know, it really depends on where the artist is in their career. I mean, it's hard to say because sometimes, I mean, I actually work like a fair amount of debut projects a year. I actually like taking debuts. I think that it's kind of fun in a way to, you know, be kind of like responsible for introducing someone to the market. I think that it's a lot of responsibility and it's like very stressful, but I also think it's kind of really cool. It depends on what makes me want to say yes to someone with a debut. I mean, if they have been establishing their audience by them, by themselves for some time. Maybe their social media numbers are really good, or maybe they have, they've been touring out for a while, or they have like a really strong, hometown following. I mean, there's all these different things that I like to look at. And if those places if those things are in place, I'm more inclined to like say yes. When it comes to artists that are a little bit more established and that have maybe, 1 or 2 or 3 projects out already, then at that point, they've already laid probably a really good, solid foundation, and maybe they've done it themselves, or maybe they had a different publicist or whatever. But if that's the case, then I'm really looking at, the like other factors of whether I want to take it. I mean, first of all, I have to like it. And I have to be honest, a lot of the debut projects I get, or a lot of like new artists that come to me, like musically, I'm sometimes just not really sure if they're ready. Like maybe the production's not great, or, I mean, you become a better player with age. I mean, not everybody, graduates, Manhattan School of Music and is, a virtuoso. I mean, it takes time to develop your craft and become, an excellent musician. So sometimes they're just like really not ready for that reason. But other times though, it's kind of like maybe there's something that's pulling me in. Maybe I really like the music, or I think that they're just like a great person and I want to help, or there's something. But for those that I don't take, I do think that they probably really just have to start developing it on their own first. Maybe they need to like really build up their numbers, on their own on social media, or maybe they need to, play out a little bit more, or maybe they need to appear on other people's recordings as sidemen first. So it just kind of depends on where people are. I think that the important thing though to remember is like in the end, the person who's most responsible for your career is the artist themselves. And no publicist or manager or booker is going to be able to instantly turn you into a star. I mean, that's really on you to do. So we can augment the process, but we cannot make the process happen, out of nowhere. So there's kind of a combination answer to that. And then I think that everyone should be doing it themselves no matter what. And if they are ready for a publicist, awesome. But if they're not, it doesn't mean they'll never be ready. It just might be maybe the next project or at another time.
In the evolution, something I really like that you said, actually you were featured on Scott Allen's All That's Jazz, and he really raved about you. And
I had such a good time being interviewed by him. I have to say, he was fabulous. So like, shout out to Alan. Everyone should definitely subscribe to All That's Jazz.
He's an amazing interviewer, and he's got a great team and a great producer, engineer. But I just really like the things you had to say too, just about how take the pressure off yourself as an artist for those who are in the music industry to, like you say, do it all in one album. And I think a lot of artists face that pressure, like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is going to be the debut. And then if they don't get the result they want, they're like lost, So I think saying that, take a break and take a step back, like it's a journey, like publicity is a journey.
It is. And, I think it's really easy to get wrapped up in one project and be like, oh my God, this is the be all end all. And I know it feels that way often. I mean, you pour your heart and soul and your money and your resources and your time into a project. So of course it's going to be a big deal to you. And it's a big deal to me. It's a big deal to all of us, but it's not the only deal. I mean, my dad, for example, he puts out like tons of records a year, and they're all very different. And there are some people that really thrive doing that, and I think that they should be looked at kind of as an example of like, you can constantly be reinventing yourself and you can be constantly putting out new music. It's not like, this one project is it and that's all anyone's going to remember you for. Because on the flip side to that, even projects that come out and kill it, that do amazing, that get a ton of press and everyone loves them and it's just, it's all over a radio and this and that. In the end, you're only as good as your last project. So when the new project comes out, we got to start all over again. And even though you got, maybe like a pile of press for that last one, that does not mean that that's going to necessarily translate to the next one. And it also doesn't mean that it's like an upward trajectory where it's like, well, I got a review in Downbeat last time, so now I'm going to get, like a beat piece. And, the next one I'm going to get a feature article, and then I'm going to get a cover. I mean, that's not really realistic. And sometimes that happens, but that's not like a realistic way to think about it. Sometimes you just jump straight to the cover. I mean, I've had a client, Tana Alexa, who I love and I work with quite regularly. She was on the cover of the May issue. And, that was an amazing moment. I was like, oh my God, this is like the best day ever. Like you're getting on the cover of Downbeat. She had some coverage previously, but it was, even to me, I was like, this is like amazing. But that is not going to happen with every single artist. I think for people that released music during this pandemic and people that just put music out, maybe right before this happened, or maybe they did it in the middle of it and they're freaking out like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, I can't believe my timing that this came out, at this time. Like, it's okay. I know it sucks, but it's okay. And there will be a time when we are not in a pandemic and where you can release music again. And, this is not the end of the life just because the timing was not great.
Who was it? I think Nora Jones and one other artist who I'm blanking at the moment released music during COVID. So I'm like, okay, if people at all levels, really, really well-known artists to lesser known are releasing, then, we got nothing to worry about. And as you say, that again takes the pressure off, which I'm sure, if you were to say that to your clients, like, oh, taking a lot of relief and knowing that it's not the end of the world, right? That,
Yeah.
I'm just curious about how the nature of campaigns have changed, like in the last, I don't know, you've been in the business for a while now, so I don't know if like the last 10, 15 years, just in terms of Spotify and kind of how the music industry's gone so digital and how artists are kind of struggling. They're, just touring, trying to get all their money from touring and they're really pushing a record. How does that dynamic maybe impact publicity?
I informally got started in like 2010, 2011, but I say that I really got started in like 2013, I guess, 2012. 7-8 years ago, that was not a thing. I mean, we didn't have that. There was no Spotify. There was no Apple Music. There was none of that stuff. So that alone has changed things a lot because now we have like a pretty major emphasis on playlisting and making sure that we're getting, these high-ranking placements. And honestly, a lot of that doesn't actually come down to PR. A lot of that's distribution. So it's kind of like even out of our hands, but we need that in order to support our campaigns, just like they need press to, make decisions about placements. I mean, when I work with record labels, they're always, of course, they want a press report to know what's coming and what's, what has come out, what's coming and what's promised, because that helps them tell the distributor who can then pitch to Spotify to, enhance the probability of placements for the artist. Also, in the last couple of years, I mean, the importance of blogs and getting premieres and stuff like that, I feel like it's still important. I mean, we have a new video, we want to get it on a platform and get, an outlet to premiere it. I mean, I'm always pitching for premieres. It's probably the most stressful part of my job is, one of the most is pitching a premiere and like looking for a home for a video. And there's only so many outlets that will do it. So you don't want to, if you don't hear back from them or they say no, it's like, oh my gosh, like, where am I going to put this? So that's definitely hard. Back in the day, like a couple years ago, there was a lot more opportunity to get premieres and get placements because blogs were like really popular. Now, as they have decreased in popularity, as social media has gone up, it kind of makes our job a little bit harder to find platforms for those types of things for people that want that. And then the other thing is just that social media in general totally changed the game, especially when it comes to pitching more mainstream publications. And it's kind of like, if I have artists that I want to pitch for live sessions, or if I want to pitch them for any type of, like Paste and Daytrotter does those sessions, Relics does sessions. I mean, these are high viewership type of things. A lot of the time the booker will tell me that I can't even consider them because they have under 10,000 people on Facebook or they have under 10,000 on Instagram. And that's like the minimum. Yeah. And in jazz, it's a little bit unusual to have numbers that high. I mean, of course, you've got your Grace Kellys and, your Chad LBs, and you've got your folks that have those numbers, but it's not that common. So that already puts us at a disadvantage when we're pitching for those placements. That was not something I had to consider like early on when I got started. I mean, I never once did I ever think about how many likes someone had on Facebook. But now, sometimes it's one of the first things. It's a drag because it takes away from the music. On the other side of it, I do think that people are a lot more open now to kind of a melting pot of genres. I think in pop music, a lot of the artists that you see now are a lot more, like the lines are a lot more blurry about what genre they're from. I mean, I was listening to SZA earlier today because I love her. And it's like, I mean, SZA's music, I feel like you can place in a lot of different categories, and she's obviously extremely popular. And I think that that's actually like a testament to music as a whole. In some cases, you have outlets and publications that are willing to take a chance on jazz because they can see it in, Kamasi Washington or Terrace Martin or, even Nora Jones, like you mentioned. So that's a good thing. I think it's a little bit less, genre specific across the board. But it's certainly changed a lot, and it changes all the time. So I'm constantly like keeping up on what's happening and constantly trying to be on the case and make sure I'm not like missing anything. And it's exhausting keeping up with everything that's changing is like a full-time job in itself.
Yeah, I totally can imagine. I now the rise of TikTok, and it's all our short attention spans are so short. We need like these fast little things, and I don't think jazz really lends itself really well to being condensed, right? It's quality over quantity, so
Yeah, and it's also true too when I have artists that are releasing singles, and they'll ask like, can I do a campaign for this one song or for this single? I mean, jazz is not used to that still. I mean, radio, there are some radio holdouts that are just like, we don't want to do singles. Like, we don't want to, we don't want to be told what we can play. And I do understand where that comes from, but I also see it from the other perspective that, singles are like, that's what it is. I mean, that's what people do these days. I mean, they release singles and in all other genres. So like, I mean, besides classical. So it's like, why can't jazz do that too? So you're right, that it's not as common in jazz. And I do think that's one of the things that would be good to kind of change. So radio folks, if you're listening, singles are not all bad.
It's cool. It puts you in a really unique position because there is an interplay, right, between booking agents and you and radio promoters, and we're all kind of creating the new direction for jazz. I mean, the artists are the sound and the essence of it, but I think it's really neat how you can kind of have some say and sway in, hey, how liberal are we going to get with the direction of this? How conservative are we going to get, and kind of play that field.
Yeah, you try. I mean, you have to kind of find a happy medium. I mean, in the end, the bottom line is like our job is to make it easier for people to get coverage. So I'm going to do whatever the journalist wants. I mean, if the journalist says, hey, I need this, I need MP3s, WAV files, and I need, the LP and a CD, and can you burn it to cassette for me because I could use that? Like, I mean, I will try to do that if that's what he needs or she needs to do the type of coverage that she wants to do. I mean, that's our jobs, is to just make it as easy as possible for our artists to get coverage. And I think in the end, like, that's a big part of why we're hired. Like, it's really time consuming to do this stuff. And it's really time consuming to do follow up. It's really time consuming to, put things in the mail. I mean, this right here, like, oh my God, I have like 100 of these all over my apartment. I was stuffing mad CDs today. Like, I have so many of these. Like, who wants to sit and do this? Like, an artist wants to practice, not stuff, this envelope to Sweden, So that's kind of, I think, why we get hired more than anything, is just to like take the time off of artists so that we can do that stuff. And, at least I think so. I don't know.
Who else is out there like you, Lydia? Because you're very unique, and I'm just really struck by you and everything you have to offer and the success of your business. Like, when I was looking at publicists, it's actually, to be a woman publicist is pretty, I think, unique. A jazz publicist and crossover. I just think it's so cool to be in your position.
It's definitely a small community, and I know this because like when I'm in like PR groups and stuff like that, which I'm part of many that are like all across the board, like whether it's, music or corporate or whatever. I mean, the truth is like, there's quite a few PR agencies out there. There's tons. But for jazz specifically, though, it is. You're right. I mean, it's kind of a small niche. I have some great colleagues that, I look up to and love, and, we'll work with if we have things in common that we need to, to work on together, or if we have artists maybe that, have maybe they are like truly crossover and they need maybe a pop publicist and a jazz publicist or something like that. So there's plenty of us. I mean, we're out there. I would say maybe like I could probably count maybe like 10 or 15 that are really like active, I guess. But there's also quite a few women. Anne Braithwaite's one of them, and she's the best. Terry Henty is a female publicist who's great. Holly Cooper is another female publicist who does great work. Carolyn McClare, another, she does the Newport Jazz Festival, and she's great. The rest are men, I think.
That's kind of why I asked. Someone wanted to know just about the women's representation in the PR world.
Yeah, they're out there. I think it's maybe pretty split. I mean, I find what's kind of interesting is that in the jazz music business, a lot of the business people happen to be women. Like a lot of managers are women, like Gail Boyd and Karen Kennedy and Michelle Taylor. I mean, these are amazing managers that I work with and love, and they just so happen to be women. And so women are actually like all over the music business. And I think that there's kind of this rap that like there's if there's still like women in jazz, it's like if there's a female saxophonist or a female piano player, it's always a lot of the times in the press, they're going to be like, oh yes, well, this female, you know, they point on her sex as one of the selling points when they would never do that with a man. And that is annoying and they should not do that. So it's kind of irritating that that's what happens when actually though, like women are kind of like running a lot of the stuff in jazz, which is really kind of interesting.
That's very cool. I mean, and we hear about artists and we hear about record labels, but sometimes it's like the managers and the publicists and the promoters, you know, the people that are doing the grunt work, doing the actual needed work, you know, sometimes they don't get the credit they deserve either. I mean, because you're based on reputation and word of mouth, which is powerful, but you know, it's like, I wish we could do a write up on you, which is part of why I'm just glad we have you on Hannah's corner, because, you know, the work you do is very important. You know you have a lot of things to send to Sweden, but I'm sure those will pay off.
We'll see if the mail gets there. I mean, man, it's to take like 100 years for my freaking packages to get there. The guy from Sweden, I'm resending it to him because the first one never made it. So maybe I'm always going to be sending to Sweden. I don't know, until it's over at least. I mean, this is the thing, like, so I'm obviously here in the US, but my operations manager is actually in London. And she was actually, her name is Neve White, and she was started as my intern here a couple of years ago. When she was in the States, you know, for a program, and she was here for a year, and then she stayed for another year, and now she's over in the UK, and she's doing really great work. I mean, there is so much jazz outside of the United States. There's more, you know, like it's much more commonplace to see jazz in a more prominent position, like everywhere else. So, you know, in France and in Italy, and you know, in Sweden and Switzerland. I mean, I grew up going to Europe every summer with my parents, you know, doing jazz things. So I grew up seeing all of that, but it is really prominent there. There's like beautiful jazz magazines. Like if I was wearing a better outfit, I would get up and grab you some that I can't understand. They're over there. They're in my library all over the world, like from Germany. Jazz Podium is an amazing magazine. It is beautiful. The articles, I don't speak German, but my friends that do tell me the articles are great. Jazz Magazine in France is gorgeous, like the most stunning magazine. It is really nice to see that, because like we have downbeat in Jazz Times, and jazz is, as far as print magazines here, I'm like, that's really it. But in Europe, there's so much, and it's just really it's just great. You know, Europe is kind of like where it's at in the end. So I just need to like learn like 5 languages.
Are you thinking of expanding beyond London? I'm into it with having a third kind of HQ.
Yeah, well, so my husband actually does all of our Latin America outreach in our Spanish-speaking territories. His name is Willie Rodriguez. He is a percussionist and a drummer, jazz drummer, but he also has been really helpful to me, especially over the past year, because we've got a lot of projects that are kind of in that cusp of like Latin jazz and salsa music. I mean, Spanish Harlem Orchestra. We also work with this new Cuban pianist, Camuel Rogue is great. We have Gonzalo Rubicalba. Like we have quite a few Latin projects, and I, you know, cannot do them justice by doing an English press release. Like it's just not going to be as effective. So my husband has been really helpful in that. So we do kind of have like the Latin America thing, the Spanish speaking thing happening. We've got the UK thing kind of cooking. And then here I have help from my assistant and writer, Dylan McCarthy, for the past, you know, 2 or so years. And he's been really helpful with the domestic stuff. I'll probably be adding on like a 5th person in some capacity, because I think I unless I can clone myself, I think I need it. We'll be expanding in that way, and maybe one day, if, you know, New York will let me, maybe I'll get an actual bigger place, but you know, so I can house all those envelopes. But we'll see. So where can I store CDs? Where can I store my envelopes? I mean, the CD thing is crazy, because like sometimes I have clients that'll send me CDs like 6 months in advance, and they think they're doing me a favor, which like their intentions are good and like, thank you guys. But also though, I'm like, no, where am I going to put this? I live in a New York City apartment. Like, I mean, last week I think counted like 14 boxes of CDs, like in my entryway. I had people coming over for dinner that night, and I was like, I got to hide these. I have them stashed everywhere. I have CDs literally all over the house, in like secret compartments, under couches, under the bed, in the bookcase, in closets over there, behind shoes. I would bring in shoe boxes. Like, that's ridiculous. I need an office.
That is dedication, you know.
That's for sure. That's one word for it. Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for carving out some time, you know, in your sea of CDs to come find me.
So thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry I'm like in the dark too. I don't know. Usually see, you have Hannah's corner. I have my Zoom corner, which is usually much more brightly lit, even at 8:45 p.m. But I noticed that I'm in a cave, so I promise I don't just like work in darkness with no light. But thank you though for having me, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about what I do, more so just to kind of illuminate it for artists that might be interested in what PR can do for them, because I do think it's sort of like a lot of people aren't really sure, what it is a publicist does, and they aren't really sure like what it is that we do. So any opportunity I have to sort of just shed light on that, information is power. So, the more info, the better. So thanks for the platform, Hannah. I really appreciate it.